When trying to pump a bicycle tire a week ago, I had a problem with air leaking from the hose somewhere. I've already repaired this hose once before, but this leak sounds worse. I'll track down the leak and decide how to fix it in today's video. To see how I do this, stay tuned. I mentioned tracking down the leak, but this time there will be no tracking down. The air is leaking from multiple places and the hose looks like it needs to be replaced. You can't hear it in this clip, but the air is leaking out depending which way I bend the hose as I'm pumping. Bending the hose up makes it leak, but letting the hose hang stops the leaking. I'll have to go shopping for a new hose, so let's get started. One thing I didn't realize was how hard it is to shop for a hose for an obsolete pump. Other tools I've done the same for have been pretty easy to find parts for, but I'm not sure why it's not the same for pumps. Rather than buy a new hose, I decided to see if I could repair it somehow. In looking over this hose, you could guess from the number of cracks visible in the exposed area of the hose, the entire hose must look the same. I'll first have to remove the fabric that protects the hose, then I'll have an idea of how to repair it. I tried to be as careful as possible cutting the fabric from the hose because the hose looks so brittle. It took about 20 minutes to remove. I'm trying not to bend the hose too much because it literally looks like it will snap in half because it's so old and the cracks are throughout the length of the hose. The fabric proved to be the biggest challenge. It almost seemed like it was slightly glued onto the rubber hose. My original plan to fix the hose was to wrap it in electrical tape, then use heat shrink tubing to hold the tape in place. I ended up changing my original plans when I saw this product right next to the heat shrink tubing. It's called rescue tape. It's made of silicone and is supposed to fuse to itself as you wrap it around the item being repaired. It sounded interesting, so I had to give it a try. Wrapping the tape is easy by yourself, but I'd recommend having two people to make it easier and to get the best results. For a high-pressure hose like one from a pump, the instructions recommend a tight wrap by stretching the tape as you wrap and at least 2 layers of wrap, one on top of the other. In this clip, it may not look like I'm stretching the tape much, but I'm actually stretching it so much my hands started to tire and wrapping took longer and longer. This is why I'd recommend 2 people to do a good job on the wrapping. So here you can see the completed wrapping. I did a test pump of my bicycle tire and noticed air leaked out of the ends. I put a thicker layer of wrap on each end and that seemed to fix it. To cover the hose and wrap, I'm using 3/4 inch heat shrink tubing. I wasn't able to get a full 16-inch length, but these 4-inch pieces should work fine since they're only meant to hold the wrap in place. Heat shrink tubing is very easy to use. Just slide it onto whatever you're covering, apply heat to it so it begins to shrink, and heat it just long enough so it shrinks to a tight fit. Also, the heat shrink tubing will cause the hose to become quite a bit stiffer as compared to when it only had the rescue tape, but that can't be helped. The heat shrink tube will help the longevity of the repaired hose more than it will hinder its usability. The hardware stores in my area seem to only carry heat shrink tubing in packs that contain pre-cut pieces. If you visit an electrical supply store, they're more likely to have it on a spindle from which you can buy it by the foot. It'll be a lot cheaper buying it this way. I'll reassemble my pump and give it a test. I've never fixed a hose using something like rescue tape before, but it really feels like a solid repair and I feel good about it doing well when I test it. I let out about half the air from my bicycle tire and tested the pump on that first. Inflating the tire worked well. After I stopped pumping, I also listened for any hissing of leaking air and there was none. I did the same test on my Segway and the results were the same. It looks like the rescue tape repair works great. I'm really glad I accidentally stumbled upon this product at the hardware store. I'm glad I decided to take on this repair without purchasing a new hose. I learned a lot from this repair. If I had gone the purchasing route, right now I'd still be waiting about a week before receiving the hose. And as I mentioned, the hoses were hard to find, so I would not be sure that I'd even receive the correct hose. I hope you've gained some useful ideas from this video. Leave your questions and comments in the comment section below. That's all I have for now, and I'll catch you in the next video.